So after Paddy Pimblett defeated Luigi Vendramini by first round KO in his debut at UFC Fight Night Vegas 36, Brunson vs Till, he now has many options on where he wants to go next in his career and how he wants to approach climbing towards those rankings of the UFC lightweight division, which of course is the most difficult division to get to the rankings of. And I thought in today's video we'd break down how he was going to do it, because he is a massive name and we need this guy to get to the top of the division, because I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but Paddy Pimblett's Octagon interview on YouTube has more views than some UFC champions ones do. So he's going to be a very big name in the UFC. He's blown up on social media. He has a ton of following. We need to get this guy to the rankings because we don't have many big stars right now in the UFC, and some of them don't really look like they're going to make it to the top. So I think we need to take advantage of Paddy Pimblett's name and get him up there in the rankings, and this is how you do it. Over here on this side, you've got the safety first approach. This is how I think the UFC are going to go about it if they're smart. I know some people are going to not like that approach, and there's going to be many people talking about how Paddy Pimblett approaches his career from now on. They're going to say he's padding his record, no pun intended. They're going to say that he's being sheltered from tough competition, but I thought over here is the safety first side. This is the way you want to go about things if you're smart, and you want Paddy Pimblett to definitely get towards the rankings in minimal most risk possible there is. Over here on this side, you've got the ultra hype side. I don't know why I've titled it that, but ultra hype, this is where you go to massively build up hype for Paddy Pimblett. There's a bunch of fun matchups in that section, maybe a little bit of risk in those matchups as well, but they're very fun names to put him against, and very fun matchups in general. And down here below is the high risk area. This is the most risky one. There's only 2 stages here to get him towards a ranked opponent afterwards, and it's very risky, but you could actually maybe get this one done if you really wanted to rush this guy towards the rankings, which I wouldn't recommend. However, it can be done. I think at the end of these lists in all different sections, safety first, high risk, and ultra hype, it all ends with him being ready for a ranked opponent in a top 15. Let's start straight away and waste no more time in the safety first section for Paddy Pimblett here. I think his first opponent, if he wants to be smart, should be a man by the name of Hernandez, a UFC lightweight coming off a win against Yancy Medeiros, which is a decent name to be coming off a win against. It was a very close fight where he barely survived the 3rd round. I think it's a pretty winnable fight for Paddy Pimblett. On the feet, on the ground. Hernandez is pretty technical, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't really do anything so effectively to where a guy needs to worry about a certain place in a fight with Hernandez. No one's really like, oh, watch out for the boxing, oh, watch out for the kicks, watch out for the ground game. He's just more of a bit of a well-rounded heavy bag that sometimes hits back enough to get himself close decision wins. And I think if Paddy Pimblett wants to make sure that he wins his next fight, I think he'd turn around right away on the December pay-per-view, co-main event of the prelims of a pay-per-view card against Hernandez. I think is a very worthy bout. And also, people are going to say that he's padding his record. It's his first fight in the UFC he's just had. This is a jump up the rankings. So I think you can get away with a couple of these nice matchups for Paddy Pimblett. He's going to be ranked below Hernandez on Ranking MMA, outside of the UFC lightweight rankings, I'm sure. And that's what I think he should do first if he wants to have the safest next win possible. After that, though, Paddy Pimblett, he moves on after a win against Hernandez. And his next matchup should be, if he wants to play it safe, after beating Hernandez, a tough veteran, John McDessie, who's right now coming off a win against Ignacio Bahamondes, who I think is another option for Paddy Pimblett moving forward, maybe to start things off. However, John McDessie, very talented veteran, doesn't really do things that make you have to worry. Like, he doesn't have, oh, careful of the boxing, careful of the ground game. He does everything decently okay. He takes a shot well. He can stay into a fight. He beat Ignacio Bahamondes by being a little bit more technical, by out-jabbing him in certain areas, and just being a little bit more effective with his strikes, rocking Bahamondes in the 1st round as well. I think this is a very approachable matchup for Paddy Pimblett. He's KO'able, is John McDessie. Maybe Paddy Pimblett is as well, but apparently Scousers don't get knocked out. Hasn't really heard of Darren Till, I guess. But John McDessie, very beatable opponent in my opinion for Paddy Pimblett, especially if he gets time to improve after a good win against Hernandez. And this can all be done without John McDessie taking a fight in the meantime. He's not the most active of guys. He went to war with Ignacio Bahamondes in his last fight. I'm sure he's going to wait until maybe early next year to get a fight in. So if Paddy stays active, fights Demir at the end of the year, and then turns around and fights John McDessie in March or April of next year, all of a sudden we're talking about Paddy Pimblett versus a real test, but also in the safety first section, the real test is going to be an achievable test where he actually can win. And if he does get past John McDessie and does it in good enough fashion, another veteran that you could put him against, Vince from Hell, Piquel. And let me just say this. Watching these two men in a cage fight each other would be a comic book in real life. Vince Piquel with his handlebar moustache and his shaved head and his tattoos all over him. Paddy Pimblett looking like Jay from the In-Betweeners. I mean, this would be an amazing matchup if it ever went down in the octagon. Just to look at from the outside. Vince Piquel, a bit of an older guy, just beat Austin Hubbard in a pretty competitive decision, but won it overall quite clearly in the last 2 rounds, I believe it was. Maybe all 3 rounds I thought I gave him anyway. Vince Piquel, good performance against Austin Hubbard, and if Paddy Pimblett can get through these first 2 guys, and then get through a Vince Piquel, who's really quite highly ranked in the UFC lightweight division, outside of the rankings, I believe he's top 25-30 right now. If Paddy Pimblett can beat those 3 guys, then you can start making an argument like, hey, you in the rankings at number 14, you're on a 2-fight losing streak right now. Here's a big name Paddy Pimblett to get you back on track. Let's make this matchup. And if you're a guy on a 2-fight losing streak at the bottom of the rankings and you're thinking to yourself, right, well, I'm going to have to take on an up-and-comer anyway. I'd rather it be a guy who's going to get me a ton of hype if I win. You're looking at Paddy Pimblett. I think that's a great way to do it if they're going to do things that way. Again, Vince Piquel, not the most active of guys. He doesn't really fight to be a champion. He's probably going to linger around until the end of next year, most likely, maybe August of next year. This could all be done step by step for Paddy Pimblett, and it's a very safety-first approach. However, this approach in Instagram comment sections will get him roasted as the next O'Malley. Oh my god, they're protecting this guy beyond belief. When are you going to give him an undefeated guy that's definitely going to KO him? We complain about fighter pay non-stop, but don't like it when a guy completes his contract before taking on top 15 guys. I know in the Instagram comment section, all we fucking do is complain about fighters not being paid enough, but god damn it, send these young up-and-comers to their death against top 15 guys and get them KO'd because we're a bunch of hypocrites. Moving on to another way of doing things. Let's go down the ultra hype route next. I think we're going to save high risk until the end because it's the quickest way possible. Ultra hype. Paddy Pimblett. Start off with a mini bit of hype, and you build up into the ultra hype as things go on. These are all going to be unranked opponents, by the way. I'm not going to be listing, and then we go Mateus Gamrot, and then next up Fiziev, and then next up Islam Makhachev, of course. Like, Paddy Pimblett, his next matchup, in my opinion, should be Ignacio Bahamondes. I made a video about this earlier today. Ignacio Bahamondes coming off an amazing wheel kick KO over Roosevelt Roberts. Really amazing finish over Roosevelt Roberts as well. Spectacular one at that. Went viral. I think if you want to channel 2 viral things together, Paddy Pimblett versus Ignacio Bahamondes would be amazing. You've got the highlights to post before the fight begins. You've got they're both young up-and-comers with a lot of momentum, both coming off wins right now in the UFC. Ignacio Bahamondes, very talented, got a very high ceiling, very young guy with a lot to improve on. He can also be a star if you beat Paddy Pimblett with him. On this side over here, if you lose Paddy Pimblett in a safety-first approach, you lose everything. But in the ultra hype section, if you lose Paddy Pimblett, you still keep hype. Okay, and you've got another guy to promote. Now you've got Ignacio Bahamondes. Just finished Paddy Pimblett after a wheel kick KO over Roosevelt Roberts. Time for him to be the new star as we rebuild Paddy Pimblett down the bottom of the rankings. Paddy Pimblett, if he beats Ignacio Bahamondes and wants to continue channeling more and more hype, I think he should move on and take on a man by the name of Ottman Azaitar. Risky though. It's so risky, and in my honest opinion, if Paddy Pimblett is watching this, I am sorry, my good sir. Watching that fight with Vendramini, if Azaitar lands that hook, I know you said Scousers don't get knocked out. I understand you believe that. But Darren Till is evidence of that not being the case. Supposedly Scousers can get KO'd just like everyone else. Okay? Let's not forget about Terry Etim. I hope he was a Scouser, because I honestly don't know. But he got Barbosa'd. Let's be real. If Ottman Azaitar's landing those shots in the first round, problemos. However, if he does land those shots in the first round against Paddy Pimblett, after Pimblett's beaten his opponent in Luigi Vendramini, beaten Ignacio Bahamondes, Azaitar's going to be coming back sometime next year. You've then got Ottman Azaitar as well. That's the ultimate thing about ultra hype on this way of doing things in a career. Even if he loses, you've got someone to promote and move forward with. Ottman Azaitar, very promotable, undefeated guy, and the build up to that fight would be amazing. Let's not forget, Ottman Azaitar is Instagram famous as well. He's got over 1 million followers on Instagram. That's way more than Paddy Pimblett, now I know. Instagram followers in the West seem to be more of an indication of how popular you are. I don't know how these guys in other parts of the world get that many Instagram followers. I'm not saying that they're all bots, but I just don't really feel the buzz of someone with 5 million followers from Uzbekistan compared to someone with 100k followers from the UK. Maybe that's just me not being from Uzbekistan, but either way, Ottman Azaitar, not from Uzbekistan, Moroccan from Germany. I think that's a great matchup to make if Paddy Pimblett can beat Ignacio Bahamondes. And at the end of the ultra hype section, you do Paddy Pimblett. If he beats those two opponents, that's top 45, top 30. He's now looking for top 20, top 25. Alexander Hernandez. Alexander the Great Hernandez. And you know what you do here? You have him beat Ignacio Bahamondes on a fight night card. You then have him beat Ottman Azaitar, headliner of the prelims of a pay-per-view. Then, opener of the main card of a pay-per-view. If Alexander Hernandez gets through Leonardo Santos next, which is a possible thing because of how old Leonardo Santos is, and also the fact that he got KO'd brutally by Grant Dawson in his last fight. If Alexander Hernandez beats Leonardo Santos, he's going to be number 17, number 18. He can talk well. You can get these two on the microphone on a pay-per-view event. Maybe McGregor's comeback event, May, June, April of next year, if he can be active enough. I'm really reaching here, don't get me wrong, but maybe it's a McGregor card. McGregor versus Ferguson in the main event. Paddy Pimblett versus Alexander Hernandez on the main card. All at a press conference together. That would generate a lot of hype, and if he wins that one, you're talking top 10, let alone top 15 for him next. Moving on to the high-risk section, and here's where things get real risky. Paddy Pimblett, if he wants to get straight to the top in 2 wins, 3 wins overall in the UFC, and you're looking for a ranked opponent, if he wants to go down that road, you may lose immediately, but you could also win and it immediately pay off as well. So if you want to rush Paddy Pimblett, but not stupidly to get him towards those rankings, here's what you do. Renato Moicano, straight away, off the bat, and you know why Renato Moicano will say yes? He has good wins, but you beat a guy in Jai Herbert who was 0-1 in the UFC against Francisco Trinaldo. Not an amazing win that's going to immediately get him a ranked opponent at lightweight. I'm sure he's worrying right now, like, oh, I'm not going to get a ranked opponent. I'm going to have to take on another unranked guy that's a savage. If you're Renato Moicano, and you know you aren't going to get a ranked opponent next, and you know you need to take on an unranked guy, why not have it be Paddy Pimblett, who's a massive name that you're going to get a bunch of hype from, and you can use that to fuel your own career and definitely get yourself a top 15 opponent next. Paddy Pimblett, Renato Moicano, could be a potential matchup next. I'll see how it goes, I guess. We'll see. If that ever happens, very risky. I would pick Renato Moicano to win. But you can go about it this way, and if Paddy Pimblett makes improvements, maybe Paddy Pimblett was rusty in the first minute of the fight with Luigi Vendramini. Maybe next time he doesn't get caught in the early rounds, and goes in the early part of the round, and goes straight into killer mode, and finishes him in the first round anyway, without any problems. Paddy Pimblett, Renato Moicano, jumps him straight into the top 20, looking for another name outside the rankings that will get him a ranked opponent himself. If Paddy Pimblett beats a guy like Renato Moicano, you can match him up against a guy like Arman Tsarukyan, who is ranked. Sorry, my bad. Who is ranked. You can get him straight to the rankings this way. Beat Renato Moicano. Arman Tsarukyan beats Christos Giagos. No one wants to fight Arman Tsarukyan, I guess, other than Dan Hooker. But if Dan Hooker beats Nasrat Haqparast, you ain't going to be interested in looking back at Arman Tsarukyan again. Arman Tsarukyan, if he beats his next opponent, I don't see many people at lightweight looking at Arman Tsarukyan as a matchup that they're going to want to take, unless he beats a huge name who's just beat a guy in the top 20, who's just lingering outside the rankings in Paddy Pimblett, with way more Instagram followers, with another 500,000 views on his Octagon interview afterwards. He can take on an Arman Tsarukyan. It's a very risky approach here. That's why it's in the high risk category. I would go with the safety first approach, but I wouldn't actually. You know what I would rather do? Ultra hype. This is good. This can get him easily to the rankings with some risk around here, but I think you'd get past John McDessie maybe. But here's like real risk towards the end of it. But that's boring. You know what I'm saying? It's boring. He's probably going to do it if he improves enough at the time, and Vince Piquel's old enough at the time as well. You've got to consider. Way older guy. He's only going to be older when Paddy Pimblett gets to him at the end of this. But I want to have some fun whilst bringing him up quite sensibly. And I think that's the ultra hype section. Plus that way, if he loses, you've got someone else to invest in. Ignacio Bahamondes, Ottman Azaitar, Alexander Hernandez at the end of next year on another McGregor card. Let's make it happen. That's my possible career paths for Paddy Pimblett. Looking forward to seeing what he does with his career moving forward. We got a new star on our hands. I know he's going to be hated on for the way he approaches his career, but he's got a contract. He needs to complete a couple of fights first. Then he can renegotiate before he gets ranked opponents. We'll see how he does it. Because there's many ways he can go, and they're all going to get criticism in some way or another. You don't deserve Renato Moicano. Why are you taking on Damir Hadzovic? One of them things. Instagram comment sections. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. I'm on the Paddy train. Goodbye.